And welcome everyone to the Walkoff here on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair, the only baseball show on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. We're talking about something big today, all right? I'm your host, Vincent. I'm joined by Anthony Walsh and a special guest who has not been here in a while. Would you like to introduce yourself, our special guest?
Yes, so my name is Justin Randell. Of course, I have been on the Walkoff before with Vincent and Anthony Walsh, but I'm glad to be back with you guys. Talking about something very special that went down last night at around 11 p.m. And I'll hand it over to you guys to introduce what we're talking about, and I'll chip in, when you guys break it down.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I feel like the Mets really got their guy this one. They finally signed him. It took long enough. Clay Holmes is a Met. Clay Holmes is a Met, everybody. And I think he's transitioning to a starter now. He's finally made the move.
This is what everybody's talking about right now.
That's very true. I mean, they signed the Yankee All-Star that they wanted. And that's about it. That's all that's happened this week in baseball. But before we get to the big news, just want to go over some smaller things, because let's be honest here. We've got an hour of baseball, and there's only one true guy that we're going to be talking about, and his name is Juan Soto. So before we get to there, just some smaller deals that went around the league. Willy Adames, 7 years to the Giants. I mean, kind of got taken away a little bit by the Juan Soto storm. But I think this is a good deal. I mean, Anthony, we've been on the show a couple times. We know that the Giants never get any star power whatsoever. But it looks like they hopefully finally got their guy that's going to bring them to a playoff run. Maybe potentially becoming that next Brandon Crawford. I don't want to say he's going to replace him, because Brandon Crawford's, oh my goodness, as he retires, so sad to see. But insanity. Anthony, what do you think, really quickly?
Yeah, he's got big shoes to fill with Brandon Crawford for sure. But Willy Adames is a really solid player, a guy that people don't talk about much. But we saw firsthand in the playoffs how good of a player he can be. I judge a player a lot by how they play in the playoffs. The spotlight's on them, and either the best comes out of you or the worst comes out of you. The best came out of Willy Adames. And even outside of that, he's just a really solid player. Put up a really solid year. Finished 10th in the MVP voting, which people don't talk about it because it is 10th, but still, finished in the MVP voting. And this is a really just solid pickup for the San Francisco Giants. He's got a lot of time to prove that he could be even anywhere near Brandon Crawford, who's a Giants legend. But still, I think this is a good, rebound for the San Francisco Giants. I think this is a really good player to put them in a position to compete in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it really works for this team, because they've looked like they've never really hit the they've never really found their guy ever since Posey left and all of them left. So that should be fun. And then of course Clay Holmes, which I think is an interesting story that he's going to the Mets and is turning into a starter there. So now a new rotation piece for the Mets. Interested to see how that one goes. Very interested to see how that one goes.
I know me and Justin have conflicting feelings on this. I actually like it. I think it's a pretty solid move. Now, we don't know how it's going to work out with him being as a starter. He started before, but that was all the way back in 2018. And he really hasn't started much since then. So, I like his stuff. Obviously, he's blown a lot of big games. But you look at the numbers every year. It's all solid numbers. He's yet to really have a really bad year. Let's not forget a couple years ago with the Yankees, 2022, 2021, he was looked at as one of the best relievers in baseball. So I get the hesitation with it, but I really like it. And I think if the pitching lab was any consideration last year with how good Sean Manaea and Luis Severino were, who Luis Severino just got a huge deal, but if the pitching lab did that for them, why can't it do it for Clay Holmes?
Yeah, I agree with you. I do like the signing, but the thing that I have an issue with is the length of the deal. I think this is going to be the first year that the Mets experiment Clay Holmes as a starter, but giving him a 3-year deal around $40 million, even though there's an opt-out after the second year, I think the Mets could have brought him in, maybe on a 1-year deal with more money added onto the contract just to see how he fits into the rotation. And if it doesn't work out for him, you have a backup plan of making him become the setup man for Edwin Diaz late innings. But I did look at the stats, Anthony. I agree with you. His numbers are very solid. Don't get me wrong. But I just think the length of the contract, I think you're just putting a little bit too much hope into him right away being that this is going to be the first year that he's going in as a starting pitcher.
So, as that goes along, we also saw Tyler O'Neill sign with the Baltimore Orioles. The 30-year-old is going to sign a 3-year deal with them. And along the same lines, Michael Conforto is going to the Dodgers, 2 left fielders. And then, oh my goodness, Juan Soto. My goodness, Juan Soto. Did you throw a wrench in my schedule or what? I was coming on here, I was like, we're going to talk about Willy Adames for the entire day. We're not going to talk about any other player whatsoever else. And now we're talking about Juan Soto. Last night, at around 11 o'clock, I would say, or 11, 10:30-ish, we saw Juan Soto sign a $765 million contract for 15 years. 15 long years with the New York Mets. Oh, my goodness.
You said Mets, not Yankees, right? The Mets.
Guys, this is, I would have thought he was a Diamondback the way that this is such a snake move. Insane. 15 years with the Mets. With the Mets.
Yeah, I want to put into perspective for the non-Met fans out there just how unprecedented this is. Let's not forget here, 5 years ago, our biggest signings were Jake Marisnick, Dellin Betances, Rick Porcello, Michael Wacha, who's actually been pretty good, but besides the point. Those were our biggest signings. Brody Van Wagenen was posting on Twitter about how Mets fans should be happy going into that Christmas time because of those signings. And now we have the largest professional sports contract, at least in North American sports history. I don't know about soccer, but still, the largest sports contract ever in my book. And this is something that really, it's a major shift in New York sports. It really is. This never would have happened, like I said, even as recently as 5 years ago. And for Hal Steinbrenner to let this happen is one thing, but for Steve Cohen to be the George Steinbrenner of the 21st century, for the Mets, is something else, and something that I know me and you never thought we were going to see. And I know Steve Cohen's had his moments signing Lindor and everything, signing Verlander, signing Scherzer. This was his first really huge moment, and this was the moment I think that changes New York sports forever.
I would have to agree with you, but again, like the whole Lindor situation back when the Mets first traded for him, this situation is completely different because when the Mets got Lindor, it was via a trade, and then they had to work on a contract extension with him as soon as he got to the team. In the Juan Soto case, this guy entered free agency looking at all 30 teams in the entire MLB. So we didn't know exactly where this guy was going to go. We knew that money was going to be on the table. That was going to play a huge factor into his decision. But the fact of the matter is, the New York Mets, who have been known to not get the biggest names on the market in recent history, we've known that for years. It's been treacherous.
Yep.
The Mets went out and they acquired arguably the best hitter in the game. Arguably. Obviously Ohtani is in that conversation. I'm not disputing that. But the Mets went out, they got the guy that they needed and that they wanted, and it's not the Mets aren't the little brothers anymore. I don't think. I think the Mets are back up to being a contender in the MLB, and just letting all of these general managers know and teams know, like we're not messing around, and it's great to see for both baseball and for New York sports, as you mentioned.
Exactly, and we have to win first, to be fair.
Yes,
but this was something, I'm going to sound like a broken record. This is something that would have never happened. It just wouldn't have never happened, especially under the Wilpon ownership. And now it has. And so I think the New York Mets have officially cemented themselves alongside the Dodgers as the perennial, destination in Major League Baseball. And that's something I really never thought I would say.
As much as I would love to say you are entirely wrong, Anthony, as much as I would love to say that, I think that really, this is the current projected starting lineup for the Mets in the 2025 season. It is Francisco Lindor leading off, Juan Soto, Mark Vientos, Brandon Nimmo, Starling Marte, Jeff McNeil, Jose Siri, Francisco Alvarez, and then in the 9 spot, Brett Beatty. Listen, I know Beatty wasn't the experiment that all Mets fans wanted him to be, but my goodness. Right now, it's weird to think that this is probably going to be the weakest Mets lineup that we see in the next couple of years. Because the fact of the matter is, in my eyes, if you want to compare this to like basketball, this is like when LeBron signed with the Lakers. Now, listen, it might not be the first year that he gets his AD, but he will find an Anthony Davis. He will get one, all right? Lindor's a great star, but you want to know what? Age is going to start deterring him a little bit, and the free agent market is going to come back up, and then you're going to see, well, now the Mets have another star, and they have another star, because what are you going to do? You don't have to build around Francisco Lindor anymore. You don't have to worry about Pete Alonso because he's gone. You can build around Juan Soto. Juan Soto. Oh, my goodness. Insanely crazy.
Yeah, but this also puts a tremendous amount of pressure on the New York Mets. Gone are the days now of no expectations. It was surprising and all the fun vibes and everything. Now, it's you better be in the playoffs at the very least. And within the next 5 years, I would say win a World Series if you want to keep him here and have him be happy because he's a winner and he wants to win. And the first step in that, in my eyes, is getting pitching and also figuring out your corner infield. Because you mentioned the bottom half of that lineup, it's not that great. It just isn't. I like Francisco Alvarez. I like McNeil. But still, Brett Beatty, I do not have much faith in. You got to figure out third base. You got to figure out first base as a corner infield. And you also have to figure out your pitching. I like the Clay Holmes signing. But still, that rotation is not where it needs to be. You need an ace to pair along with Kodai Senga, who's had a ton of injury issues. And you also need a bullpen. Who's your setup man for Edwin Diaz right now? I can't name one because there isn't one. So there's a lot of work to do. It's more pressure than ever. But this is the spot you want to be in. So I'm very happy, but job's not finished, as Kobe would say.
I would love to. I like that take, Anthony, because one, this is what I'm thinking. I don't think that the Mets are a World Series contender just yet. I still think they need another piece.
I agree.
But I think that Soto is the piece. Like, he's like a magnet. You're going to get another piece. There will be another piece at some point. So if it's not now, it will be very soon. It will be incredibly very soon. Here is one second. Keep on going, Anthony. And then in just a second, we'll be hearing what Gary Cohen had to say on SNY about the Soto signing.
Sounds good. So I'll vamp with Justin a little bit. I really think that right now either you bring back Pete Alonso, you find a third baseman and move Vientos to first base. I know you have issues with that, and I understand that. I'm not saying Mark Vientos would all of a sudden be a really good first baseman. But you have to figure out something there. If you go into this season with Brett Beatty as your third baseman and Mark Vientos as your first baseman, we could both agree that would be a failure.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. I feel as though if it's the last resort and Vientos has to move over to first base, I don't think I would have too much of an issue with it.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at Steve Cohen and, or I'm thinking about Steve Cohen rather, and in his head, I'm pretty sure he's feeling, I don't really want Vientos being our first baseman.
No,
I think, he's had his issues at third base with errors, don't get me wrong, but, he's a known third baseman. That's how he came bump it in the system. He did get a little bit of experience at first base in the minors, but for the most part, he was always over at the hot corner. But yeah, if that's the last resort, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But again, I still feel, and I stand by it, I think the Mets are going to find a way to bring back Pete Alonso. I think after last night's signing of Juan Soto, Alonso may reconsider how he is approaching the market and saying, is this a team that I want to play for? Do I want to move out of New York City and play for either the crosstown rivals, which I still feel he won't go, or goes anywhere else? But I think this signing last night is going to put it into perspective on how Alonso approaches the rest of the market.
Well, here is what Gary Cohen, the play-by-play announcer for the Mets, had to say last night on SNY about the signing. Here you go.
It creates an enormous length in the lineup. Juan Soto is a force of nature. He's a 400 on-base percentage guy. He's a 500-plus slugging guy. He presents a threat every time he comes to the plate. And, obviously depending on whether the Mets get Pete Alonso back, but if you're looking at a middle of the batting order that features at least Juan Soto, Francisco Lindor, and Mark Vientos, that's a formidable grouping in, say, the 2, 3, and 4 spots in the batting order. So,
he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
No.
Do you think, though, honestly, that Pete Alonso comes back? Because I think that the fact that they signed Soto is kind of the goodbye to Pete.
I'd be surprised, put it that way. Because, look, if one team offers Pete, say, $30 million more than the Mets, it'll be very difficult for him to say no. If it's between 10, 15, maybe even 20, I could see it, maybe. But there's going to be teams out there willing to spend on him. I've said it for a while now, and it's nothing, not breaking news, that wherever Juan Soto signs, Pete Alonso is going to be very difficult to also go there because it's a lot of money. And I know Steve Cohen, money doesn't matter, but we've also heard Steve Cohen say, there is a limit. And this was a kind of a extraordinary circumstance of you have this generation's Ted Williams playing, and so you're going to throw a ton of money at him. Pete Alonso's great, but he's not that. And so you have other options out there. You have Christian Walker, you have Carlos Santana, but this isn't comparable to Juan Soto.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Steve Cohen, he has it in the back of his mind that.
Excuse me, gentlemen. I would like to take a second to stop listening to us talking and bring on our sports director, Tanner Price, who is an avid Mets fan. Tanner, how we doing, bud?
I'm feeling absolutely amazing right now. I mean, it really, like last night, it kind of hit. I was watching Juan Soto highlights actually, and I just saw him like hitting home runs into the Coca-Cola corner, and I couldn't believe that that's what we're going to be seeing for the next 15 years.
Oh my goodness! And I have to know. I mean, you're a Mets fan. You're going to get to see this guy for now 15 years. But let me ask you, do you think $765 million is the right price for him?
I mean, I honestly, the answer, it's a very difficult situation because I was actually talking about it on my show, Full Moon Sports, on Fridays at midnight. Sorry for the shameless plug, but
no shameless plugs here. Love it.
This is the nature of baseball, and this is where the contracts are at. So it's $765 million for for an outfielder, a guy that, unlike Shohei Ohtani, cannot pitch, only plays one side of the ball, and yeah, it probably is not the best fielder, but with the way baseball is and with the way the Mets are with Steve Cohen, it doesn't, it's not gonna, like, it's definitely not, the right amount for a guy like him, but we're at a point in baseball where you have to go above that if you want to win a championship.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm interested to know, do you think, because we were talking about it here, do you think that this is the piece that is going to bring them to the World Series, or do you think this is a piece that's going to attract more parts over to New York that'll bring them to the series?
I think that it definitely is a step in the right direction, a gigantic step in the right direction. But with the team they have right now, and I know that we still have an offseason left, there's a bunch of free agents still out there. The team on the field right now, if this is a team that took opening day, they're not making the World Series. I think they need to go after another starting pitcher or two. I think bringing back Sean Manaea has to be the number one right now because of the season that he had and what he brought to that pitching staff. I think that is the number one priority. Bring back Pete Alonso.
Oh, I cut off Tanner. I apologize. I cut off Tanner. But now we have another caller here.
Oh, this is a busy show.
Would you like to say your name, my good sir?
What's up, guys? I'm Luke Sirianni. Thank you for having me on the Walkoff, Vincent.
Luke,
the calls are blowing up here, but
calls are blowing up here. Luke, would you like to tell us? I mean, you're a Yankees fan. Would you like to tell us? And we're going to get Tanner back on here in just a little bit. But would you like to tell us about what you think of the signing from a Yankees fan perspective?
Well, I was a little upset last night. You were with me for that. First of all the Mets fans in the studio and listening, congratulations. I didn't get to say that.
I appreciate it, Luke. Thank you.
Very upset last night. What a big move for the Mets. I mean, this team now just had maybe one of the biggest pieces added. We saw what this guy did with the Yankees last year. In my opinion, still, they lost last year. He carried them all the way to the World Series practically. But, yeah, I'm so hurt as a Yankee fan. But you kind of knew that Cohen would always be in the running. You know, he likes to throw money at players. But, yeah, it's gonna be a long rebuild for the Yankees. But for the Mets, I think, you got to be very excited. You made the NLCS, gave the Dodgers a better fight than the Yankees did without Soto. Now you're going to have him, and, that's.
Oh, no. I just keep on skipping calls here. Tanner Price, you're back on.
Okay, yes. Where were we at?
So wait, so many people are calling into the show right now. So, Tanner, where were we at? Please take it away.
I think I was talking something about Sean Manaea, but, I mean, bringing back Sean Manaea is the number one priority for the team right now. Getting the starting pitching to be.
Oh, my goodness. Alex Braun is now on the phone with us, and I keep on having to drop calls. I apologize. Alex, how are we doing, bud?
How are we doing? You know how we're doing? We're watching the rise and fall of Juan Soto. He's gone to the World Series, and that wasn't good enough for him, so now he has to go to the bum-ass Mets.
And please do tell me, what, from a Yankees fan's perspective, how does this feel for you?
How does it feel? It's obviously a big sense of betrayal. It doesn't make sense. The Yankees offered him a much better deal, no defer. $760 million would have been the biggest contract. And he decided, I want to go play for the team that has only 3 World Series. And
2 World Series, but okay, go ahead.
4, sorry. I was thinking about it. And just will be all around terrible. The Mets have only been to the World Series, not the World Series, to the playoffs 4 times since 2015, since their World Series run. So if he wants to go to a terrible team, why not? Why not let him? Because that's what he obviously wants. The Mets, the New York Mets.
Does anybody here think the Mets are terrible? I just a random question.
Not right now. Braun, I love you, but I got to disagree with you here, bud.
Okay, so when Juan Soto obviously falls to injury like all New York Mets do, we'll see what happens. That's $760 million.
But with the Yankees, he would have been healthy.
Like New York sports teams, it's not gonna do anything to the team.
Alex, I'm going to stop you right there because I cannot take this Mets slander right now. Okay, this is a wonderful time to be a Met fan right now. All right, we just got Juan Soto on the richest contract in North American sports history. I am not taking this slander, and the fact is, the Mets, they got to the NLCS last season, took the Dodgers to 6 games.
It was a win, and you know it.
But the Yankees went to the World Series, took on that same Dodgers team, and got bounced in 5. So you want to talk about the futures of the teams here, bud. I think the Mets have a little bit of an upper hand with taking over Juan Soto.
The Yankees couldn't beat the Dodgers in the World Series. I know that. I watched it. We all did. They weren't prepared or ready. They didn't have the strength.
Do you think any team is ready for the Dodgers, bud?
Currently, I don't know.
Wow.
Because they got probably one of the strongest bullpens. They got one of the craziest hitters on the team. And now, I don't know. But Juan Soto, I have to go because I have to get to class. But Juan Soto, if you're listening to 90.3 WMC Upper Montclair, I want you to know I'm hurt, I'm discouraged, and I only hope for the best.
Well,
goodbye.
Thank you so much, Alex Braun. It's been great having you on, and we'll see you on the Friday Morning Buzz. Isn't that right?
I'll see you there. Tune in.
All right. Bye, Alex. Well,
Boy, this is the best.
My
I
goodness.
love being in this position to laugh at the other people that are upset.
Oh, this is great.
I'm usually on the other side of the coin. Usually I'm the one hurling the insults and saying, "Oh, it's not going to work out."
Well, what did we talk about before? The Mets used to be the little brothers.
Exactly.
And now it's vice versa. And look at
You know what this
Well,
sounds
now
like?
we are
It
bringing
sounds like
it
Big
back.
Brother's a little bit concerned about Little Brother. That's what it sounds like.
100%.
And folks, we are now back and are solidified with Tanner Price, the sports director here at 90.3 WMSC, to hear his entire opinion with no cutoffs whatsoever of this acquisition for the Mets. Tanner, what do we think?
I mean, I can't believe I was cut off by my former co-host of the Triple Play, legendary WMSC show. But how I feel about just the signing in general, I mean, it's one of those. It's a move that it changes the entire complexion of the way we look at baseball and the National League and baseball in New York. I mean, if you told somebody, even 10, 15 years ago, the Mets would sign a mega deal and take a top 5 player in baseball from the Yankees. That's unheard of. That didn't happen. That never happened. Nobody did that from the Yankees. Never. That was the whole thing.
Exactly. I mean, even 5 years ago. I mean, forget 10, 15. I mentioned it earlier in the show. Our big signings in 2019 was Rick Porcello, Jake Marisnick, Michael Wacha.
Yes, I remember on Christmas Eve, I was getting lunch with my family, and I was excited because we signed Dellin Betances.
Exactly. There you go.
That was Dellin Betances, and I remember being happy. I remember being happy because our big off-season acquisition was Chris Young.
Oh God!
Like that's what.
Wow.
Like I remember leaving middle school, and it's like the Mets signed Chris Young, and I was like, oh, here we go. It just changes. It changes everything, and you know that Steve Cohen wanted to get that big free agent signing. He wanted to get everybody. He wanted to bring in the premier player of the free agent market, and he just did that. And now I think it felt as if before the Mets were being used for leverage for a lot of teams, like last year with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They clear as day they were being used for leverage. I mean, they kind of admitted it. He signed the Mets offered him the same contract as the Dodgers, and he chose the Dodgers. But now it felt like that was the case for the first couple of years, and it felt like they needed to make a trade or have the guy in-house like Francisco Lindor to sign that big deal. Or their big deals before that were Brandon Nimmo, guy who was on the team for, a couple of years before that. And now they go in and take the biggest free agent that I think that I don't know about I think the biggest free agent was Shohei Ohtani, but he was kind of going to the Dodgers. No one really knew where Juan Soto was going. It was either the Mets probably or the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Blue Jays, but no one knew that he had a team that he was set on. And from the looks of it, it looked like he wanted to go to the Mets. It wasn't a contract disparity where the Yankees are $60 million behind the 8 ball of the Mets. It was a $765 million from the offer from the Mets and $760 from the Yankees. So, and he chose, it's $5 million more, but when you're dealing with that, you could choose the Yankees offer and you're still, set for life. So it changes a lot of things, and I think that is going to be the biggest takeaway from this.
Well, even Jeff Passan, who I think we all regard here as the best baseball reporter, of this generation, said, he listened to the presentations from the Mets, listened to the presentations from the Yankees. He was more impressed by the Mets and believed in their future more. And that's any Yankee fan could sit there and say, oh, it's not going to work out. It's not this. We're talking about arguably the best hitter of this generation, believing in the Mets' future over the Yankees. Let's take a second and realize how important that is and how improbable that would even seem 5-10 years ago. any Yankee fan could say that would be incredible. That wouldn't happen. It just happened.
Well, Tanner, we are going to let you go, but if you would like to listen to Full Moon Sports, you can listen to it when, Tanner? Friday nights at midnight, correct?
Friday nights at midnight.
And I bet you're going to have a fun show this week.
I'm having an unbelievable show. It's unbelievable. Juan Soto's a Met. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good morning.
Take care, Tanner.
We're now joined by another caller. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Ryan from Hillsborough.
Well, Ryan from Hillsborough, can I ask you, how do you feel about this Juan Soto signing?
Man, I woke up this morning and the air that I was breathing in tasted a little different. The sky was a little bluer. The grass was a little greener. Everything was a little more beautiful now that Juan Soto is coming over to Queens. What a day. What a feeling. What a moment for a franchise.
Oh, my goodness. And Ryan from Hillsborough, I just have one question for you because I can just imagine that you got such a rush of emotions right now, and I can only keep you for so long. I mean, what do you think? What do you have to say for the Yankees fans that have lost their perennial star, someone that was going to take them to the series again?
Hey, I mean, there's two things I got to say. First of all, womp womp. Second of all, this is such a seminal moment for this franchise, for the New York Mets. I mean, think about it. The Mets, they've always been little brother. They've always been little brother to the New York Yankees. I'm not afraid to say that they have, So this kind of signing with Juan Soto, it just brings in so much more legitimacy to this team. It changes that dynamic of New York completely. It used to be, oh yeah, the Mets are the Yankees are the big money team. They're the team that goes out and gets free agents. They're the spend. They're the destination. Free agents dream of playing for the New York Yankees. That's not the case anymore. Now, Queens is the destination. Steve Cohen, I've heard reports that, I'm sure you were talking about today on the show, I heard reports that the Yankees were kind of in the lead the entire time through with these discussions. And, I mean, Steve Cohen himself got on the phone and was able to completely shift the narrative. It wasn't just money that got Juan Soto here because, I mean, the Yankees did match at the last minute. It was just the belief in Steve Cohen as an owner and his front office in terms of management. It's such a big moment. Like, we look at, moments, right, where teams kind of arrived. For the Mets, this is the moment where they arrived. I cannot feel any better about the situation. What a feeling, what a day.
Hey, Ryan, this is Justin in the studio. I just have a quick question for you because now that Soto is locked up for the foreseeable future with the Mets, the next step is what for the Mets? Because obviously, Pete Alonso, he's a free agent as well. He's gonna have a new place, either back with the Mets or somewhere else. And there's also pitching issues as well with the Mets, trying to compete with the Dodgers next season. So what do you think the Mets' next step is after getting Soto?
I mean, right now is a team that you're kind of comparing yourself to the big dogs, right? You're comparing yourself to the Dodgers. You're in that category now with Juan Soto. I think right now depth is going to be a big part. I mean, the farm system right now is completely emptied out. There really isn't anything new coming up. I like to see a little more depth, a little more talent. They just have to have a few more complete pieces to add in because they have the bones right now of a championship team. I don't think they're all the way there yet. I think adding more depth, again, there are still some pitching issues adding Clay Holmes, I think it was an all right move, but I think that's going to be the next step forward. I mean, there's still work to do. This Juan Soto, it's not just, all right, we have Juan Soto, we're going to win a championship. We have to start adding some pieces.
I love it. Well, Ryan from Hillsborough, we thank you so much for coming on the show. And, hey, maybe if you ever want to call in again, we'd love to hear it. But if you got somewhere to go, you should probably go back to that place, bud.
All right. I'll see you later. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Well, folks, I mean, we have some more callers that want to call in. But really quickly, I will say this. I saw this report today, and I want to hear what our two Mets fans here want to think about it. I heard that John Heyman said this.
Okay. Another
somewhat reliable source from baseball. And I'm going to say it to our caller as well. Hello, you're on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. It's the Walkoff. Who are we talking to right now?
You're talking to Tim from Fanwood right now.
Wow, Tim from Stanwood. Tim, I mean, are you a Mets fan? Are you a Yankees fan? What should we know about you? What do you think about this Juan Soto idea?
I am a very cynical Mets fan, if I don't say so myself. But listen, I mean, anytime you get a guy like Juan Soto, you're going to be excited about that. He's a top 5 player in the league. He's one of the more clutch postseason players. Won a World Series at 19. Like, everybody gets the accolades from him. But the biggest thing is, I think Ryan touched on this before, another caller who came in. We need more pitching. Like, Clay Holmes is not really going to do it for our bullpen. I would like to maybe see Beatty or McNeil get shipped off for a starting pitcher. We already lost Severino to the Athletics. So even though obviously it's a great day to be a Mets fan, Juan Soto, one of the best players in the league right now, we still have some moves that we have to make in order to win a World Series.
I mean, do you right now, let's say this lineup is put to the field right now. If I can take this in NFL terms, would you say that this Mets team kind of looks like the Bengals? I mean, all offense, no defense at the moment.
Well, it's funny because we had, Tyrone Taylor and Harrison Bader last year, who are two of the better two of the better defenders in the outfield, maybe in the whole league. Obviously, their bats weren't as productive as they could be, but last year, I think you're right. We had a better defensive team. It's going to be interesting to see how our infield shapes up because Vientos, like you said, is not a very good fielder. We're going to probably put Acuna in there, who's a pretty solid glove. Lindor's a Gold Glove caliber kind of guy. And if we re-sign Pete Alonso is actually a pretty solid defensive first baseman. And then when you look at the outfield, if you got Nimmo out there, he's an okay glove, doesn't have a strong arm. Soto is, kind of mixed defensively, but I could see why you would do that comparison between the Bengals and the Mets. I hope the Mets are not an empty calorie team like the Bengals, where you have all these stars who are being very productive and it's not turning into wins. But I do agree with you that there's definitely some things that the Mets need to tune up before the season starts. I don't think this guarantees us anything by any stretch of the matter.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for calling in. We will see you next time, and we hope that you had a fun time on the show, bud.
Appreciate it. I'm listening in. Good luck, guys.
Thank you. Well, I mean, as the calls keep coming in, I did hear John Heyman reported that a big reason that he thinks that Juan Soto is a Met is because the Yankees would not let his family and his driver come into certain parts of the clubhouse. So Steve Cohen heard this and brought the transportation management director to the meeting with Soto. And although, listen, it might not be the biggest thing, but my goodness, Steve Cohen really put his money where his mouth is, and it really worked out for him. But we have another caller, and I think I know who this one is. We cut him off earlier. I am so sorry. You're listening to 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. This is the Walkoff right now. Who are we talking to?
What's up, guys? I'm back. Luke Sirianni.
Luke, I'm sorry I cut you off earlier. We've been talking to a lot of Mets fans since you've left. But I want to know from a Yankees fan now, all right? What do you think? We talked to Alex Braun. He said he's depressed. He said he's down in the dumps right now. But what about you? What do you think as a Yankees fan?
Yeah, I think I'm going to, word for word, what Alex Braun said is exactly how I feel. I mean, again, I got to sleep on it a little bit, so I'm a little more calm this morning about it. It's behind us now. He's gone. We're not going to get him back. So now Brian Cashman and the Yankees front office has to be really aggressive. I mean, we threw north of $700 million at Juan Soto. So now we really just have to go out and get a bunch of different pieces. There's still players out there. Max Fried, Tanner Scott. You have other players like Bregman, Teoscar Hernandez available. I think now also we can maybe bring back Gleyber Torres at second base, which probably wouldn't have happened if Soto stayed. There's a lot of players on the market, and obviously nothing is going to fill that void that Soto would have filled for us. But I think now we have a chance to maybe build a very strong all-around roster versus just another power hitter for the outfield. But, obviously if I can go back and do it all again, I would love to have offered Soto at least match the Mets money because we missed it by about $5 million. So, yeah, that's kind of where I stand right now.
And let me ask you one thing. All right, so as you said, Soto's gone. We talked to Tanner Price earlier, and he's an avid Mets fan. He told us that, now it's time to get Sean Manaea. If you're a Yankees fan, you don't get Juan Soto. Who are you going after now? Who's plan B?
I think, I know I said last night I did not want Teoscar Hernandez. I think you got to fill that void in the outfield first, because it'll probably be Judge, Jason Dominguez, and then maybe Teoscar if we brought him in, unless you go get somebody else. We have a lot of holes right now to fill. That's the thing, too. I really would also love Max Fried. He's one of my top names right now, because I think our pitching rotation's not as good as everybody thinks. I think we could improve that a bit. But, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I am right now. Just, like, you got to go out and acquire more pieces because without him, the lineup looks really, really weak. I just saw, like, a projected – or not a projected lineup now. Their current lineup without Soto, and it looks terrible, in my opinion.
My goodness. Well, Luke, thank you so much for coming on the walk-off. We hope you listen in later. And Luke will actually be coming on with us later in the year when we have our predictions episode. He's one of our happy guests that comes on and tells us every year that the Yankees aren't making the playoffs. Isn't that right, bud?
Thank you for having me, guys.
All right. Bye-bye, bud. Well, I mean, we've had a lot of fun callers today.
That's for sure.
We've talked to a lot of people. We are going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we are going to be discussing a little bit more of the Juan Soto details because, let's be honest, what else would we be talking about if it wasn't for Juan Soto?
When this came without you, I am lost, I am vain.
That is right, folks. They can't win without you, Juan Soto. They won't win without you. They have nobody. It is so sad. Did they have an MVP winner on their team this year? Did they have the 2024 MVP winner? Yeah. Is it over for them? It might be. It might be. Juan Soto signs with the Mets. This is the walk-off on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. And I'm Vincent Pacone. I'm joined with Anthony Walsh and Justin Randell, two Mets fans in the studio with me. I'm not a Mets fan. I'm a Yankees sort of fan. Phillies diehard, so, oh my goodness. But Juan Soto has left the New York Yankees. And, I mean, we talked a lot about, hey, are we, what are we looking at here? Is it more of a Mets win or is it more of a Yankees loss? And I think the big thing here is this is the biggest loss I think the Yankees have ever faced in their history. I mean, the only thing I could think of, George Steinbrenner said that in his biggest regret in his career was letting Reggie Jackson walk when Reggie Jackson went to the Angels. Now listen, Juan Soto is no Reggie Jackson. I think as of right now, he's no Reggie Jackson. I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to hit 3 home runs in the World Series, But is he going to be better than Reggie Jackson in a couple years? Probably. Just to give you a perspective here, George Steinbrenner let Reggie Jackson walk in his age 35 season after he batted .237, only had 15 home runs in 94 games for the Yankees. The next year he signed a 5-year contract with the California Angels at the time. And yes, he was a 3-time All-Star in that span. But his biggest mistake was not re-signing a 35-year-old. Now, his son Hal, his biggest mistake, and possibly Yankees' biggest mistake, I'll put it that way, is not signing a 25-year-old back to his contract. Nope, they were like, you want to know what? We don't need him. We'll throw some money at him. We'll throw a bunch of money at him. But what do you guys think? In my eyes, this is embarrassing for the Yankees. I don't care that you won 27 World Series. It doesn't matter anymore. This is absolutely embarrassing.
Well, it is, for certain. But I have a question that I'd like to hear Yankees fans answer. And it's a very simple question. It's this. They were about to spend close to $800 million. Okay. They didn't get it done. How are they going to spend that money now? And if he's not going to spend upwards of $800 million this offseason, why? And how could you, as a Yankee fan, sit there and accept Hal Steinbrenner pocketing that money? if it were me, I'd be extremely upset. Number one, I wouldn't be sitting there clowning the Mets. I'd be quiet. I'd be saying, you know what? We're not the Yankees anymore. We're just not. Because this is the biggest loss that the Yankees have ever faced in their franchise. Reggie Jackson I don't even think it's comparable because, number one, the age, but number two, he won World Series with the Yankees. Like, he was Mr. October. What did Juan Soto ever do? He had a great season, but they didn't win the World Series. So this is a catastrophe for the Yankees. But how are they going to spend that money? And I don't think he's going to spend all of that money. If he spends $350, well, why are you pocketing another $350? You know, there's so much money to be spent. So many talented free agents out there. How could you not sign all of them at this point?
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. This is going to be a really busy offseason for the Yankees now. Obviously, they put all their time and effort into bringing back Juan Soto because, you know, without him, the Yankees would have been nowhere near making it to the World Series, let alone even going on a playoff run, in my opinion. But to your point, yeah, you know, the whole thing with Soto, they were willing to go up to as much as $800 million. And, you know, to your point, the question is, how are they going to divide that money amongst the other remaining free agents? And I would say that, you know, the Yankees, they have a lot of work cut out for them. Because right now, the Yankees, they've never been known for losing. They've been known to get all of the best free agents, you know, making great trades. Obviously, they've won 27 World Series. This is basically the first time in the history of the New York Yankees that we can basically say that they lost in something and that the Mets took something from them, you know, just out of nowhere. I mean, they really just, they went out, the Mets, and took a perennial generational talent out of the Bronx and made him switch over to the Queens.
Well, even more importantly, could have been the player of the 21st century Yankees. Let's realize he's 26 years old. Let's say he goes on to have these 15 years, 12, 13 of them are Hall of Fame level years. He'd be better than Judge, without a doubt. Mm-hmm. And you could make a case if that were to happen, better than Jeter, better than A-Rod. You know, he would have been the 21st century Yankee. Now, a lot needs to be done. You know, he needs to win a lot with the Mets for that to happen. I'm not saying necessarily will. But the Mets potentially took that away. That is unprecedented, something that we've never seen before. And something that I'd be worried about if I was the Yankees. Maybe we'll see more of it in the future because Steinbrenner's not going anywhere. Cohen's not going anywhere. And they're not all of a sudden going to change their tunes. These owners are who they are. So if I'm a Yankee fan, I'd stop with the big brother stuff. I put it that way.
And how scared are you guys for the Mets or for the Yankees now? Because right now, they do have an MVP on their team, a two-time MVP now. He's been incredible when he's on the field. He's dealt with some injury problems, but I think a big thing to remember is he is 32. He'll be 33 by the time the season starts. He's aging. You had Anthony Volpe, who was supposed to be the next Jeter. Doesn't really look like he's becoming the next Jeter, and I don't mean it in an insulting way. I mean, Jeter is one of the best players to ever touch the diamond, let alone Yankee Stadium. You have Jazz Chisholm, who was supposed to be a big investment for you guys. He did pretty good, but, you know, now he's not, you know, he was the star on the Marlins. He wasn't really good when he was the star of that team. Now he's the secondary option here for the Yankees. Garrett Cole, he's aging. You lost Clay Holmes. Luis Severino left 2 years ago. Soto's gone now. I mean, from a Yankee team perspective, it does not look good right now. It really just does not look good. And I don't think any signing really is going to make it better. What do we think?
No, I don't think this is like irreversible damage. I think you're not going to get a Juan Soto level player. There just isn't one on the market, and there probably isn't going to be one for a very long time. But if you were to go sign Pete Alonso, if you were to go sign, I don't know, Corbin Burns, if you were to go sign Tanner Scott, who I'd want even way more than Corbin Burns if I were them, because Tanner Scott's an elite level bullpen arm and would really help that bullpen. If you were to go sign, and like I said, invest the money that he was ready to spend just 24 hours ago, if he does that, the Yankees could easily still be a playoff team that makes it far. The American League has not all of a sudden turned into some juggernaut in the past couple of months. It still is a cakewalk. I mean, let's be real here. The Yankees are still the American League favorite, even without Juan Soto. So there's a lot of room to still win. The problem would be if you make the World Series again and you go face the Dodgers or the Mets, then you have an issue. But still, to get there, you still easily can get there if you invest in this team. But it's also, like, you make a good point, it's now or never. Aaron Judge isn't getting any younger. Garrett Cole's not getting any younger. I'd be worried about, Aaron Judge has shown time and time again that he's nothing in the playoffs, so that's a big concern. But you can't operate scared. You have to operate saying, okay, these are my stars. I got to invest in it. Well, if you don't invest in this, what was the point of the past 5-6 years of Yankees? What was the point of getting Stanton? What was the point of signing Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole to the largest pitching contract ever? What was the point of all of that? If you're not going to invest now when it matters most, if you're just going to put your tail between your legs, why did you do all that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Time is not on the Yankees side, for sure. You just rattled off some of the bigger names on the Yankees roster and their age. And, it's really like a win-now mode for the Yankees. And by not re-signing a 26-year-old, as I mentioned, generational talent in Juan Soto, it makes things a lot more complicated for them. And, I just want to go back quickly because, like, Yankees fans, obviously they're so upset about losing Soto to the Mets. And, they're thinking, like, oh, well, why would Soto switch over from a team or a franchise that has been known for just winning, all throughout, and instead going over to a 2-time World Series winner New York Mets team, which has been known as the Little Brothers. And the reasoning for that is, in those discussions for Juan Soto, I feel as though Soto chose the Mets because he took into account what the outlook looks like for the Mets' future. And the reality is, the Mets' future-wise, they have a lot of young talent coming up in the farm system. The roster itself right now in the majors is pretty young. You have Vientos, obviously, Nimmo, he's like 30, 31, but,
Alvarez, young catcher.
Exactly, Alvarez as well. Like, they have a lot of young talent. Acuna, think about it, no one even talks about this guy, but Ronnie Mauricio.
Yeah.
He's coming back from an ACL injury. So, talent-wise and future-wise, the Mets have a younger team coming up, and the Yankees are kind of on, the way out as far as age-wise. And so I just feel as though Yankees fans have to understand that is one of the main reasons why Soto, I think, went over to the Mets. Not just for the money, but for the future-wise.
Interesting. Well, you've been listening to the Walkoff on 90.3 WMSC Upper Montclair. We are going to say our goodbyes now and say adieu, but don't worry. We'll be back, as we always are, from 10 to 11 every single Monday. And Mondays do stink. But when you get to listen to the Walk-Off, I hope it makes it a little bit better. It definitely makes me feel happier, even though Soto is coming to the NL East, which is going to destroy my summer. I am going to be so sad. But from Vincent Picone, from Justin Randall, from myself, Anthony, did I even mention you? Did I say Vincent McCann? From Anthony Walsh. Signing off here. We will see you next time.